When installing light fixtures, the question sometimes arises whether using screws other than those provided by the manufacturer violates the fixture's underwriter's laboratories or all listing. Unless the manufacturer's instructions specifically mandate the use of the provided screws, substituting standard screws, such as 8.32 machine screws, generally does not invalidate the UL listing. These standard screws are also likely UL listed themselves. While adhering to the manufacturer's instructions and using the provided screws is generally advisable as a precautionary measure, using alternative screws is not typically a violation, provided that the screws are of the correct size, type, and material. Several factors contribute to this determination. Firstly, the UL listing primarily concerns the safety and performance of the overall fixture design, not the specific fasteners used, unless those fasteners are integral to the fixture's safety features. Secondly, standard screws like 8.32 machine screws conform to established industry standards. Using these screws should not compromise the fixture's electrical or mechanical integrity. Thirdly, it's critical to verify that the screws used are appropriate for the application. They must be of the correct length to ensure secure attachment without damaging the fixture or junction box. The screws should also be made of a compatible material to prevent corrosion or other adverse reactions. In summary, using standard screws in light fixture installation is acceptable if the manufacturer's instructions do not explicitly require using the provided screws, the screws used are of the correct size, type, and material, and the screws do not compromise the fixture's safety or performance. Electrical installations must comply with the National Electrical Code, or NEC, and local building codes. Always consult the latest edition of the NEC and local regulations for specific requirements in your area. When in doubt, it is always best to consult with a qualified electrical inspector or engineer to ensure compliance and safety. The UL listing of a product signifies that Underwriters Laboratories has tested a representative sample of the product and determined that it meets UL requirements for safety. These requirements are based primarily on UL published and nationally recognized standards for safety. A UL listing mark on a product indicates that the product is compliant with UL safety standards. These standards cover various aspects of the product's construction, performance, and safety features. The UL listing mark provides assurance to consumers, manufacturers, and regulatory authorities that the product has undergone rigorous testing and meets established safety criteria. It is important to note that a UL listing is not a guarantee of absolute safety, but it does indicate that the product has been designed and manufactured to minimize the risk of fire, electric shock, and other hazards. The NEC is a comprehensive set of standards and guidelines governing the safe installation of electrical wiring and equipment. It is updated every 3 years to reflect changes in technology and industry practices. The NEC covers a wide range of topics, including wiring methods, overcurrent protection, grounding, and equipment installation. Compliance with the NEC is essential for ensuring the safety of electrical installations and protecting people and property from electrical hazards. Local building codes often incorporate the NEC by reference, making it legally binding in many jurisdictions. In addition to the NEC, local building codes may also include additional requirements specific to the area. These requirements may address issues such as seismic protection, energy efficiency, and accessibility. It is important to be familiar with both the NEC and local building codes to ensure that electrical installations comply with all applicable regulations. When performing electrical work, it is important to follow safe work practices. These practices include energizing circuits before working on them, using appropriate personal protective equipment, and inspecting tools and equipment for damage. Electrical work can be hazardous, and it is essential to take precautions to prevent electric shock, arc flash, and other injuries. If you are not qualified to perform electrical work, it is best to hire a licensed electrician. Licensed electricians have the training and experience necessary to perform electrical work safely and in compliance with applicable codes. They are also insured, which protects you from liability in case of accidents or damage. When selecting an electrician, it is important to check their qualifications and references. Ask for proof of licensure and insurance, and contact previous customers to inquire about their experience. A reputable electrician will be happy to provide this information. The types of screws used in electrical installations are typically machine screws, sheet metal screws, and wood screws. Machine screws are used to fasten metal parts together, such as electrical boxes and equipment enclosures. They are available in various sizes and thread types, including 8.32, 10.32, and 1/4.20. Sheet metal screws are used to fasten sheet metal parts together, such as electrical panels and gutters. They have a sharp point that allows them to self-tap into the metal. Wood screws are used to fasten wood parts together, such as mounting electrical boxes to wood studs. They have a coarse thread that provides a strong grip in the wood. The materials used for screws in electrical installations are typically steel, stainless steel, and brass. Steel screws are the most common type and are suitable for most applications. Stainless steel screws are corrosion resistant and are used in damp or corrosive environments. Brass screws are also corrosion resistant and are often used for decorative purposes. The length of the screws used in electrical installations should be appropriate for the application. The screws should be long enough to provide a secure attachment, but not so long that they protrude beyond the back of the material being fastened. Protruding screws can create a safety hazard and may damage the wiring or equipment. The torque applied to screws in electrical installations should be sufficient to provide a secure attachment, but not so much that the screws are stripped or the material is damaged. Over-tightening screws can weaken the connection and may lead to failure. It is important to use a torque wrench to ensure that screws are tightened to the proper torque. The use of thread locker on screws in electrical installations is generally not recommended unless specifically called for by the manufacturer's instructions. Thread locker can prevent screws from loosening due to vibration, but it can also make it difficult to remove the screws later. In some cases, thread locker can also damage the insulation on wires or equipment. When working with electrical equipment, it is important to follow all safety precautions. Always de-energize circuits before working on them, use appropriate personal protective equipment, and inspect tools and equipment for damage. If you are not qualified to perform electrical work, it is best to hire a licensed electrician. To elaborate further, the specific requirements for fasteners in electrical installations can be found in the National Electrical Code, or NEC. The NEC provides detailed guidelines for the selection, installation, and use of fasteners in various applications. For example, NEC Section 314.25 covers the requirements for supporting and securing boxes and conduit bodies. The section specifies the types of fasteners that can be used, as well as the minimum number of fasteners required. NEC Section 300 covers the requirements for protecting conductors from physical damage. This section specifies the types of fasteners that can be used to support and secure cables and raceways. The NEC also includes requirements for the use of corrosion-resistant fasteners in damp or corrosive environments. These requirements are intended to prevent the deterioration of fasteners and ensure the long-term reliability of electrical connections. In addition to the NEC product standards such as those published by underwriters' laboratories, or UL, may also include requirements for fasteners. These standards may specify the types of fasteners that can be used in a particular product, as well as the performance requirements for those fasteners. For example, UL Standard 1598 covers the requirements for luminaires or lighting fixtures. This standard specifies the types of fasteners that can be used to support and secure the luminaire, as well as the performance requirements for those fasteners. When selecting fasteners for electrical installations, it is important to consider the following factors: the type of material being fastened, the environmental conditions, the load requirements, and the applicable codes and standards. The type of material being fastened will determine the type of fastener that is required. For example, when fastening metal parts together, machine screws or sheet metal screws are typically used. When fastening wood parts together, wood screws are typically used. The environmental conditions will also affect the selection of fasteners. In damp or corrosive environments, corrosion-resistant fasteners are required. The load requirements will determine the size and strength of the fasteners required. The applicable codes and standards will specify the types of fasteners that can be used and the installation requirements. It is important to consult with a qualified electrical inspector or engineer to ensure that the correct fasteners are selected and installed properly. Improperly selected or installed fasteners can create a safety hazard and may lead to equipment failure. When installing light fixtures, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. The manufacturer's instructions will provide specific guidance on the types of fasteners that should be used, as well as the installation procedures. In general, it is best to use the fasteners that are provided by the manufacturer. These fasteners have been specifically designed for use with the fixture and will ensure a safe and reliable installation. If you are unable to use the provided fasteners, it is important to select fasteners that are of the same type, size, and material. It is also important to ensure that the fasteners are properly tightened. Over-tightening fasteners can damage the fixture or the mounting surface. Under-tightening fasteners can result in a loose connection, which can create a safety hazard. If you are unsure about how to install a light fixture, it is best to hire a licensed electrician. A licensed electrician has the training and experience necessary to install light fixtures safely and in compliance with applicable codes. In addition to the specific requirements for fasteners, there are also general requirements for electrical installations that must be followed. These requirements are intended to ensure the safety of people and property. Some of the general requirements for electrical installations include grounding, overcurrent protection, and wiring methods. Grounding is the process of connecting electrical equipment to the earth. Grounding helps to protect people from electric shock by providing a path for fault current to flow back to the source. Overcurrent protection is the process of protecting electrical circuits from overloads and short circuits. Overcurrent protection devices, such as circuit breakers and fuses, are designed to interrupt the flow of current when it exceeds a safe level. Wiring methods are the methods used to install electrical wiring. Wiring methods must comply with the NEC and other applicable codes. Improper wiring methods can create a fire hazard or electric shock hazard. It is important to follow all applicable codes and standards when performing electrical work. Failure to comply with these codes and standards can result in serious injury or death. It is also important to use caution when working with electricity. Electricity can be dangerous, and it is important to take precautions to avoid electric shock. Always to energize circuits before working on them, use appropriate personal protective equipment, and inspect tools and equipment for damage. If you are not qualified to perform electrical work, it is best to hire a licensed electrician. The question of whether using alternative screws in light fixture installation violates the UL listing is a common one. The key takeaway is that unless the manufacturer explicitly states in the instructions that only the provided screw should be used, substituting with standard screws of the correct size, type, and material generally does not void the UL listing. However, it is always best to err on the side of caution and adhere to the manufacturer's instructions whenever possible. When dealing with electrical installations, safety should always be the top priority. Consulting with a qualified electrician or electrical inspector can provide clarity and ensure compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. Remember that the NEC and local building codes are constantly evolving, so staying updated on the latest requirements is crucial for anyone involved in electrical work.